Windows MultiPoint Server, lower your public access PC lab costs. So I'm happy to be here with you today, and we have some wonderful presenters with us. We have Jim Lynch, who's the Director of Green Tech here at TechSoup Global. And we also have some folks from the La Conner Regional Library. So Joy Neal and Lane Fernando will be sharing with us how they used Windows MultiPoint Server at their library. We do have quite a few librarians on the call today, so that's great to share. And then we're also lucky to have Charles with us from interconnection.org, who will be sharing his knowledge as well about Windows MultiPoint Server, and he runs a really successful refurbishing company.
All right, I guess that's my cue. This is Jim Lynch
Go ahead and
from TechSoup here in San Francisco, and I'd like to welcome everybody. We're essentially this webinar is going to describe what this thing is, Windows MultiPoint Server. The advantages for mainly public access computing, where people can come to a place and just do whatever they need to do on the internet. It's also a great thing for training. It's also a green technology because it saves a lot of money and it saves a lot of energy and also hardware. And then, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the case studies we did over the fall, and La Conner Library was one of those in which we essentially sent Joy and Lane a box full of stuff and asked them to struggle through it all by themselves to see how it worked. And then we're going to have a final page of resources we're going to have on the slide. And by the way, you'll get all these slides, so you don't have to try to copy down everything. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Brennick, who runs a place called Interconnection. It's a nonprofit refurbishment place in Seattle. Interconnection is a very interesting place in that it places lots and lots of PCs, good refurbished computers all over the world, and especially in developing countries, and especially in Latin America. MultiPoint Server was actually developed in India about 7 or 8 years ago for the purposes of education. What they needed to do was to have a very lightweight kind of software system that would create a very easy to develop and easy to configure computer lab for schools. And so it's a fearful symmetry that we have Charles with us today, who's quite expert in this. So Charles, why don't you take it away on the next slide.
All right, thanks. So yeah, my name is Charles Brink, Director of Interconnection. And we've been working with TechSoup on this MultiPoint project for almost a year now. So we've done several pilot projects, basically figuring out how hard it is to set it up, who can benefit from this product, and what kind of support requirements will be needed for it. But basically, MultiPoint is a software. It's a server-based software operating system that allows multiple people to use one computer. So essentially, from 2 up to 20 people can use just one computer. And so it's a way of virtualizing the desktop on monitors or thin clients attached to the server. So I'll talk about this, but it's a way for libraries, nonprofits to really reduce their hardware costs as well as energy and other resources costs. So people who can benefit primarily from this product are schools and education environments. As Jim mentioned, the product was developed primarily for schools, especially those in developing countries or places where there's a lot of or limited access to technology, as well as libraries. Libraries are great because obviously it's an environment where there's a need for multiple people to use computers, a lot of shared computing needs. Telecenters, internet cafes, the same sort of scenario where multiple people are using workstations and computers, and as well as NGOs as well, and charities. Other environments like small businesses or call centers are also places where this product is very useful. Some advantages of MultiPoint. First, it's a relatively easy product to set up and maintain. Essentially, it's just like any other computer. You start it up, you plug in the different devices, and away it goes. We'll talk about in the pilot cases, how long it took to set up. Usually no more than an hour. It saves energy. As I mentioned, it's one device, it's one computer that multiple people can share. So instead of each individual person using their own computer, they're sharing one computer. So that obviously means less energy consumption. It also is a way to repurpose old computers. So you can use old laptops, for example, as devices that attach or that connect to the MultiPoint server. You can also use old monitor screens, the old CRT type screens, or old hardware can be used as the stations, as the workstations that connect to the server. Last night we tested out an old Pentium 4 laptop as the client devices. It was installed with Windows XP, Service Pack 3, and we launched a program that's already in Service Pack called MSTSC, and then it connected to Windows MultiPoint without any problems. So the software, all that stuff to connect to MultiPoint is already on Windows XP or Windows 7 or even Windows 8, and it just works. And then probably the most a cool feature of MultiPoint is this thing called desktop orchestration. And here's an example. But basically, it allows the administrator to essentially see and control what the other people are doing with on their computers. So, say for example, there's you're in a classroom environment. The teacher would obviously be the administrator. Each student would have a workstation connected to the MultiPoint server. The teacher can see what the students are doing on their computers. So obviously, if they're playing with Facebook or whatever, she can see that. She can also launch programs for the students from her admin station. She can close programs. She can block certain websites. So for example, they can only go to the school website or whatever. She could launch websites. And there's just a whole host of things that the student or that the teacher can do remotely. And like I said, that makes it a fantastic tool for schools as well as libraries. So for the library scenario, the admin could set it up so that they're only able to, like the person using the device can only go to like one website, or can only go to the website that has the catalog system for the library. And you can set it up in this kiosk mode, where essentially the users can access nothing but the browser, so they can't get into any control settings or anything like that. So a lot of admin features to it. Other advantages, like I said, it's fairly easy to set up. Just takes an hour or two. It runs any software that has been developed for Windows Server 2011 will run on it, and a lot of other software. So like Office will run on it, 32-bit applications as well as 64-bit. It prefers 64-bit. And it saves electricity and hardware costs. So generally the figure is it'll save 60% on your hardware costs, as well as 80% less environmental impact. And here's a little graph that shows the sort of the environmental benefits. So if there's 5 people using 5 individual computers compared to a 5-seat MultiPoint setup, you'll see that there's a huge savings. I mean, this is just comparing, how much electricity 5 computers will use compared to a 5-seat multi-point system. How much resources it'll take to build 5 computers compared to one multi-point system, and just kind of down the list. So you can see the advantages. Not only is it great for saving energy, it has that desktop orchestration feature, but it's also good for the environment. And so there's different ways that people can connect to a multi-point server. So essentially, like I said, each workstation has a virtualized Windows 7 environment, but you have to obviously connect to the server to do that. And so one way is you can use these USB stations. I have pictures that show you what they look like. You can connect directly to the video cards. So you can set up a desktop that has like a 2-port video card, or use 2 video cards, and you'd have 4-port video cards. And so each one of those ports would go to a monitor, and each one of those monitors would be its own workstation. So if you have a 4-port video card, you could have 4 workstations. And those are ways that you can essentially directly connect to the server. Now you can also use what's called thin clients, and those can connect via a network. You'll need a switch to make that work. But you can use, like I mentioned, old computers, old laptops if you're using that scenario, which is like the thin client scenario, and also use what are thin clients, and I'll show you what those look like. So here's the various devices that...
Charles, we did have a question in the chat that was asking about how multi-point server is different from thin clients.
It is thin clients.
Okay, there you go.
So essentially, you do use thin clients to connect to multi-point servers. So there's other software out there that's really similar to multi-point. So like I'm showing the different devices, there's a product called N Computing. They too develop a product that virtualizes the desktop. There's an open source product called Userful. That product too virtualizes desktops, so you can use thin clients. But it is thin clients. You need a software to be able to run thin clients. But so here's the various thin clients that can be used for it. N Computing, there's loads of them out there. Weiss is made by Dell. N Computing is its own company. And there's also the the different multiple ported video cards, old laptops, all those sorts of products. For our thin clients, we prefer N Computing just because they're a little more ahead of the game. That's what they do, is this N Computing, or is this virtual computing stuff. Let's see. In the MultiPoint 2012 has got a neat feature where essentially you could bring your own device. We call it BYOD, and so that allows this system to work on essentially any device. So you can use iPads, Android tablets, old laptops. All that stuff will allow. They install a client software which then connects to the server, and so pretty much any device will connect to the multi-point server. And this is sort of an overview of the kind of minimum hardware requirements. So for those who are looking at providing this product or selling multi-point servers, it needs a minimum of a Core 2 Duo hard desktop and 2 gigs of RAM. It's because multiple people are sharing one computer. Generally, it needs a faster computer. So like an i5 or i7 processor is ideal with lots of RAM. So and so TechSoup offers the product. There's a standard
Jim,
edition.
I think you're going to add a little bit about this.
Oh yeah. Sounds like I'm up. This is about what we offer in TechSoup. This is the donation on this. It's important for you to know that we have the latest version of MultiPoint Server. It's 2012. It actually just came out just over the holidays, so it's very, very current. There's only a single difference, I think, between a premium version and the standard version, and that's the number of users. And the admin fee for the premium one is about double the admin fee for the small one, or the standard one. And it has a relatively few number of languages that it's available in. However, it really works well because we had one lab that actually had it running in both English and Chinese. And one student could be running Chinese, and one person on the lab could be running English, and so it's a pretty great thing in that regard. I was surprised how easy that was.
Yeah, and basically, to add different languages, it's just a matter of downloading the language packs, which are free. So, for example, for that Chinese installation, the user, they just downloaded the Chinese language server pack, and it was a pretty easy setup.
One additional thing, here's the admin fee from TechSoup Global, and which all nonprofits or most nonprofits and libraries are eligible for. Refurbishers, for whatever reason, aren't eligible to get it from TechSoup, but there's another program that Charles will talk about that has it for refurbishers. And as I mentioned, the standard version is $20, and the MultiPoint Server Premium version is $49. This is the usual 5% or 4% of market value is the admin fee for that. One of the more complex things about MultiPoint Server is it is the same kind of licensing up as Windows Server itself, so that each client, in order to make it work, each client needs its own license as well. And the client licenses are $8 each. So if you had 10 client licenses that you needed, that would be an additional $80 on top of the, say, $20 for the MultiPoint Server Standard. So very affordable. And one thing that I found that was kind of amazing about it is that non-technical people can actually set it up pretty easily. So that's a very useful thing.
Very good.
All right.
We do have some questions coming in. One person asked about adding more users. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would do that?
Charles, you want to take that?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's within the so with MultiPoint, there's a really basic control panel. I mean, and that launches when you start up the computer, and there's just a feature in there that says add users, and so you just click on that and then add the person's name or the username, and you can enter a password or not. So that's pretty simple.
Okay, great.
If that was the question.
Yeah, another question, can all of this be connected wirelessly? And if so, what equipment is needed for that? Do you have experience
So
doing
you
that?
can. There are wireless thin clients. Weiss makes them. I think M Computing makes them too. But essentially, it's just a wireless thin client, and that would connect to a wireless. What do you call that? A bridge, and a person could be anywhere, and to use that device. Also, if your library has an existing network, so the library is already networked, and this is what we did for the Burlington Library. Essentially, you would just put the MultiPoint server, in your server room, and then any thin client that then is attached to or that connects to the existing server or network would work. So it could be anywhere within the library system or building.
Okay, great. And another question, can you give an idea of a recommended as opposed to a minimum hardware platform for running MultiPoint Server Premium with 20 workstations?
i7. So if you need like 20 users, I would get like an i7 processor with I don't know, as much memory as you can put in it. I mean, because it's, like I said, everybody is sharing that computer, and it can get very, it could stretch it. You could put a lot of, requirements on it if there's a lot of users. One thing MultiPoint is not extremely good at is like the Flash websites or like Flash video. that flash uses a lot of memory. And so if like multiple people are looking at videos at the same time, and they're all using flash, it'll really bog down the system. It'll make the videos choppy. So that's something to think about, I guess.
Okay,
we have a great number of questions in,
yeah,
and I wanted to address one that came in, which was about deep freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually works with deep freeze. We have one library actually running deep freeze. It took a little bit of fiddling to figure out how to make it work. And then the PC reservation system. Now that's one area that we're still looking into, and we're basically in touch with the people at Microsoft about that particular app, or that class of applications for libraries. Those applications basically meter time for each station, and also they do printing to a specific printer, which is usually coin operated. So we're working on finding out the fix for that. It looks like there is one, but we're still working on finding out what that is.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful. And one question about, are these one-time licenses? Going back to the licensing, I'm not sure.
What do you mean one time?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
You can use them forever. I mean, it's just a software license. So once you buy it, it's forever.
Okay, great.
Do you mean
Roger,
transferring them?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Can
Roger,
it be transferred to somebody else or something?
Maybe. Roger, if you can clarify that in the chat, let us know if that answered your question or not. And let's see. And someone was going back to the question about adding more users. So is that if you go beyond, can you go beyond 20 people if you obtain the premium package?
I think you have to set up, Charles will correct me, I think you have to set up another MultiPoint system setup if you're going beyond 20. I think that's the limit.
If you're going over 20, you'd have to set up another server. So these servers can be joined. So like you could have 4 or 5 servers, but still have one admin who would be able to, see all of the users from her admin panel. So that's what I'll talk about with the refurbishing licensing. That's limited to 5. Well, it's not limited, but you only get 5 cows with it. But you could buy, 5 systems. So, Microsoft has a program called the Register Refurbisher Program, where organizations like mine and others who do a lot of computer refurbishing can get discounted licensing for used equipment. And they just came out, or they just started offering MultiPoint licensing through this program. It's MultiPoint 2011, not 2012, but it's still a really good deal. You can see here's the cost breakdown where, if you just go to the Microsoft Store, you got to pay a lot of money for this product, $769 for premium. And then there's academic licensing, and then there's charitable licensing, which Jim talked about. But through the Register Refurbisher program, I can buy premium license with 5 cows for $30, and so that's like $6 a station, and so it makes it really, really economical. If you go beyond those five seats, you can do it, but you have to pay a kind of the standard price per seat. Or what you could do is you could just go ahead and get another 5-seat license pack, and then just join those two systems. And if you're using like a Core 2 or an older machine, that's probably the way to go, rather than adding multiple, more than 5 users to an older machine, because like I said, it'll just bog things down a bit.
Charles, the next slide is yours as well.
Okay. And this is getting back to 2012. So it has this new function that allows users to see what other users are doing. So in 2011, only the administrator could essentially have control or see what the users are doing. But in 2012, users, so students or whatever, can essentially look at each other's work or share files between each other. It has this disk protection software, and so we're talking. So beforehand there was questions about deep freeze. I understand deep freeze does work on MultiPoint, but it's not the greatest product for it. There's another product called Rollback. I think it's Rollback RX. And that actually has software built specifically for MultiPoint. So Rollback software is software where you install it, and let's say people are using MultiPoint, and then somebody comes along and installs, I don't know, a virus or messes up the settings or something like that. With this rollback software, what it will do is at the end of the day, it'll roll things back. It'll basically take the operating system or delete everything that's on the operating system and bring it back to the starting point of where it started when you first did the install. So in shared environments, in libraries, in schools, you really need that sort of software. Otherwise, I mean, especially a lot of people are sharing computer. You need this sort of software to keep keep people from messing up the settings or getting viruses on the system. And 2012 comes with that built in, so you don't need to buy third-party software. And the third-party software can get pretty expensive, and so this is a really good deal. And then also has that better device compatibility, which I mentioned, where other devices like tablets and that sort of thing can be used as your thin clients to connect to a MultiPoint server. And it's case studies.
Case studies. Should we field some questions here? Because we've got some. This is such a lively bunch. We have wonderful questions coming in.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So we have one question: will MultiPoint server run in a virtual Windows server?
I don't know. Virtual Windows server. Yeah, I don't know.
We'd have to get back. I don't know how the interaction is with virtual Windows.
Okay,
server,
we'll definitely mark that as a follow-up question then.
Yeah. If someone can speak to that, that would be terrific on the chat.
Okay. And then someone asked about, is there a maintenance renewal cost?
No.
Okay.
No.
And how about tech support? What tech support is provided?
Well, it's a Microsoft product, so I mean there would just be whatever tech support or whatever comes with them. The plan is to offer this product through TechSoup. So in TechSoup, you'll be able to buy essentially complete packages through TechSoup, and Interconnection will be offering tech support as well as TechSoup. So if you're buying it off the shelf, you can only turn to Microsoft for your tech support. But in the future, there'll be ways to get tech support.
Let me say a little bit more about that. This product, as a donation from TechSoup, comes with software assurance, and so that actually does come with free phone tech support from Microsoft. At the end of the deck, I've also included an online forum where people can ask questions. Anybody can actually go on there, and it's a TechNet forum from Microsoft where you can ask questions and get answers same day. So there is a bit of tech support on that.
And we'll include links to that in our follow-up email too, so people can find out more about that. Another question about recommended minimum requirements for servers and clients.
Minimum hardware requirement for the server, or what is?
Yeah, for the servers and clients, they said.
Well, so the minimum hardware requirement
for the server.
Yeah. The server would be a Core 2 or above, and that's sort of the bare bones, right? With 2 gigs of RAM. The clients, there's really no minimum hardware requirements. I mean, clients themselves are pretty basic. There's no hard drive in them. There's not a lot to them, and so if it's a network client, you pretty much select anything.
Then someone asked.
Let me add to that.
Oh, sure.
One thing that we're doing is we're going to put up, in a day or two, we're going to put up a resource page for Windows MultiPoint Server. And on there we're going to have a list, or we're going to have a full article that talks about the different client devices you can use on this. And there are many, as Charles mentioned. In our Charles actually had to go through some different ones to find out which worked best. So that is an area of, I think, concern for this. And I think what he found was a thing called a pluggable. And the end computing clients worked very well for us in the installations. But he had to kind of suss that out a little bit. So we're gonna make that easier for people by putting up an article on our resource page. Unfortunately, I don't have a web address for that just yet. It's just coming in tomorrow, I think. So sorry about that.
Great.
I think Pat had a question about how the monitors and how the mice plug in to Windows MultiPoint. So Charles, you want to say a little about that?
Well, so it depends how you're connecting to the server box. So if you're connecting via a thin client, the thin clients have USB ports. So that's pretty easy. You just plug it into USB ports. If you're doing a direct connect, which means
can you
plugging
explain
the monitor.
What that is?
So direct connect is, like I said, it's like when you have that dual port video card. So say you have a box and it has 2 video ports. Each video port would go to a monitor, and then what you would need would be a USB hub. And then you would need a USB hub for each station. So let's say you're building a 2-person station because you have 2 monitors. You need 2 USB hubs. Each one of those hubs would be connected to a USB port in the computer. And then each one of those hubs you would connect your keyboard and mouse to. And a lot of the hubs will have like speaker jacks and that sort of a thing. But you don't connect the keyboard. So in a 2-person or a 2-station environment, you would not connect 2 keyboards directly to the computer box. You need to connect those keyboards to a USB hub that is then connected to the USB port. If you connect the keyboards directly to the computer box, it won't work. It won't know what to do. And so you have to get these USB hubs, and those things are cheap. Those are like $5. You can get them from Pluggable or anywhere. They're really easy stuff. There's a lot of them out there.
So this is Jimmy, and just wanted to say that we actually have, we'll post on that resource page kind of in-depth descriptions of all the different places where these things were installed. And actually one place had a direct connect kind of set up, and they did it themselves. It's a place called, I forget, Reliatech. It's Reliatech.
Well, actually,
it's a place local in
Connor had the direct connect too. Because we use USB, what's called USB VGA hubs. So you can also buy devices. They're not really thin clients because they're not network based, but it's a USB client that has a VGA port, and it has like 2 USB ports, and you can connect those. So a lot of computers now will have like 4 or 6 USB ports on them, and each one of those ports you can connect to one of these USB hubs. Then each one of those will be a workstation.
So it's actually pretty easy. Let me just segue away from the questions for a minute and tell you that we did 5 case studies, and then we also included the experience of another place called Reliatech in setting Windows MultiPoint Server up. In the case studies, as I mentioned, we basically just sent all the stuff with some directions to each location, and that's 2 libraries and 3 nonprofits, and mostly they were in Washington State. And then we just sort of sat by and watched everybody struggle. So, and because we wanted to see what kind of package solution would be appropriate for this. And I think there's one question that says, what will what kind of hardware will be in a lab in a box that we're thinking about developing or probably will develop? And essentially, we're thinking it's going to be the kind of configuration that has like a pluggable or an end computing set of hubs, and then it's going to have a big, heavy server computer, and with probably refurbished monitors, LCD monitors, and the server computer will be also refurbished. The mice and keyboard will be new, and all the wiring, of course, will be new. So it's a fairly simple thing. Charles has become quite adept at pre-configuring this so that it took almost all of these places under an hour to go ahead and plug it in. It actually took more time for them to plug in the hardware pieces than to get on the server computer and then set that all up. It took only a few minutes to set up the server computer in the cases that we looked at. So we believe that this is highly successful, and the experience was pretty terrific. And so I'd like to introduce now, finally, Joy Neal and Lane Fernando, who are with the LeConner Library in LeConner, Washington. And Joy and Lane can tell you more about their library and, of course, what their experience has been in trying to set this thing up and how it works. So there we go.
Hi, this is Joy. And I'll tell you a little bit about LeConner and what we are. We're very small. We have a building that's under 2,000 square feet, 2,200 if you stretch it. We had 5 public computers. The town is only about 800 people, but we have a service area of about 5,000, so we're really small. I'm the only full-time person on staff as the director. We have 4 clerical staff and no IT people on staff until I hired Lane, who kind of knows more than I do. We have 2 servers that use Windows 2008, and like I said, we outsource our tech services to Network Solutions out of Bellingham, which costs us every time we have to go out for service. We've been using thin clients since 2008. At that time, I was looking for a bunch of different options, and one of the tech people recommended to me that we look at thin clients, which we did. Our problems were that we had a lot of desktops. Each one was operating totally differently. They were all over 5 years old, and they were crashing on a frequent basis. And since I didn't have a tech person on staff, very often they were incapacitated for quite a while until somebody could come along and fix them. And then each time we had a software change or a patch, each one had to be loaded individually. So very often I'd have a tech person that I was paying who was here for a half a day loading things. So in 2008, we were looking at a budget of $4,000 to replace some computers. And that probably would have been only 2 computers. So we started looking at thin clients. And what we ended up doing was our first thin client installation. We did not use MultiPoint at that point. It was just a virtual environment on our server. We spent little over, right around $5,000 to replace all of the desktops with thin clients. That included new monitors, new keyboards, the whole works. And the nice thing is that, of course, the software is loaded one time. All the patches are done on the server, so we had less tech time, fewer times that the tech people were called out and we had to pay for. And the client licenses, just like was mentioned earlier, that's much cheaper than buying a product that you have to load on every single machine. And clients have tended to last longer and been a lot more durable than our desktops ever were. And the really nice thing is we don't have tech people on staff, and so the staff's been able to troubleshoot them. Sometimes it's just a matter of restarting them, and and then they're back up and running and nice and clean again. So when we were offered the opportunity to try out the MultiPoint, we set it up. We took all of our thin clients down. We set up the MultiPoint. And this is a picture of Lane and I putting it all together. And like they said, they didn't give us any. They gave us a piece of paper with instructions, and basically put it together by ourselves and figured out how it worked, and it was up and running in a very short period of time. We were really pleased with it. It's faster than having individual desktops running, and we really thought it was a very good product, and it worked very well for us, and we still use thin clients, and we're very happy with them. Do you want to add something, Lane?
Oh, definitely. I'll just talk about it a little bit. Hi, this is Lane. Look, Hunter. I just want to talk a little bit about the general day-to-day use of the MultiPoint server. It was every day it ran pretty smooth. I know Charles brushed on the topic of the flash and multiple videos running at the same time, but a lot of our patrons, they come in and, general patrons, they use Facebook, check emails, do resumes, and sort of all of that. However, you get into the YouTube, the higher HD video. We didn't have any choppiness in the video with when we installed the MultiPoint, which we were having with our other thin clients, and we're still having an issue with it right now. Something possibly with a bottleneck, but with the MultiPoint, it was pretty smooth all around. Sometimes all 5 of them would be filled up, and we had people doing some 3D gaming on it, watching videos, and then other patrons doing resumes and such as well. But they're very reliable setup. You turn them on, and they run pretty effortlessly for the patrons to figure out. And the control from like a workplace setting was pretty nice too. We talked a little bit about deep freeze. We had it set up so it would delete the cookies and the history. So that was nice. So if people were doing online banking of some sort, then they didn't have to worry about anything like that being left for the next patron coming through. But yeah, easy to set up, and I'm a big supporter of it so far.
Thank you. And Lane, we did get one question that just came in about whether your patrons had their own logins, or did you just use a general login?
No, at the beginning of the day, it was a general login. So what we did, we start the server up, and boom, they all plug in, and then you just hit, once you enter your administrative password, and then they're all on pretty much. You just hit enter, and they go right in to the profiles. And another thing, too, the desktop orchestration was pretty cool, too. So you can actually say, if we were talking about the PC reservation issue, if they could find a way for that to look, you could send private messages to the individual patrons on each. So if you had it from like a workstation computer that the staff were using, you could say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes we're closing up shop, So if you're working on something important, feel free to hurry up.
That's nice. Good. And what speed of Internet access do you all have there in La Conner?
We have a T1 line.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure, but it's through the K20 system.
Great.
This is Jim.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, another question, very interesting question came in, is what's the replacement cost between the MultiPoint system and the old system that you had, the thin client system? Maybe Charles and I can field that, because we essentially provided the MultiPoint system at no cost. So that was a pretty great deal for La Conner, because we wanted to see how it worked. We had a grant to basically do that. But Charles, I'm thinking that with the $100 software costs, what would you guess for a 10-station lab it would be the hardware cost? Sounds to me like it would be somewhere under $2,000 for a 10-station lab. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you're using used computers as well as potentially used monitors. You could really get the cost down. We're looking at offering the 5-seat MultiPoint systems for less than $1,000. And that makes it really affordable.
So the cost difference in this and the conventional system, it looks like Joy was I think it was $5,000 for the original one, a thin client that you installed, and that worked pretty well. And this one would be, under $2,000 for a 10-station lab, or $1,000 for a 5-station lab. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right. Yes, much less expensive, and even less expensive than desktops.
Yeah. And it's not, and the other thing to keep in mind, it's not just the fact that it's a lot less expensive. You also have the admin features to be able to control, how people are using it, and also the the energy savings as well.
Someone just shared in the chat that they already have 6 computers and 2 laptops, so they would just need the software. So what would the cost be for just the software in that?
From TechSoup, it's $20 with a Windows MultiPoint server, and then for the each license for your 6 computers would be $8 each. So what is that? About $70 for the whole thing. That's from TechSoup.
Sounds good to me. Great. And we do have a couple more questions. You want to do those now or move on to the resources?
This is a great time for questions. I think resources, I'll just explain just briefly what they are, but I would like to these are such good questions. Let's keep rolling on that.
And one more for the library related. Is it possible to lock this down so that it's only can be used for internet access?
Yeah. Yeah, it has a really cool feature called kiosk mode.
Oh,
and
great.
So that all it will do is bring up the internet browser. That's it. You can't bypass that. You can't get into settings, nothing. And so that's the kiosk mode. And you can also block websites. So and also you can set up different user accounts so that the type of user account that a person using will have different privileges and also different ability to look at different sites or do certain functions.
And we had one case study where that was the case. They used it as a kind of a kiosk in kiosk mode for just using the library catalog. It was at the Burlington Library. So that'll be up on TechSoup very soon.
Yeah. And staff, and there's a question of whether the staff could use their computer for their own purposes. Yeah, I mean the computer that's essentially is the MultiPoint server. I mean it'll be running MultiPoint server software. So there's certain programs that'll run on the server and certain programs that won't, but you can still use it for for your own purposes.
Good. And we did have a question about printing, and I know that that's a big issue in libraries.
Joy, I think that you people can print in your library. Is that right?
Yes, we can, and we didn't have a problem printing with them at all. We did we did have to run out and get a USB hub for each one of them because we didn't have enough. We didn't have a free USB for people who were bringing in their sticks to download and print, like resumes and storage of their documents and stuff. So we did have to add to the set, but they were like, $4 a piece. They were really inexpensive.
Great, good. And another question about kiosk mode. So can a patron access Office or other software and also have internet access? So can you specify?
No, in kiosk mode it just brings up the browser. That's all it does. You can't bring up anything else. But if you're not in kiosk mode, yeah, you can pull up Office or you can pull up anything. But kiosk is just a really limited, kind of a lockdown environment.
Okay, but in the regular mode, they could lock down other things, right? So they could have one that was just
it's just like a Windows 7 or whatever environment. It's just like it just looks like any other computer.
Let me join on this. Another question came up about whether third-party software works on Windows MultiPoint Server. That's a kind of a general question, and how the licensing works for that, and especially regarding Microsoft Office. So yes, many third-party software packages work on MultiPoint, and it serves. You just install it on the server computer, and it basically appears on all the clients. However, to be perfectly legal, you have to have a license, say, for each Office version. So I forget what that is on TechSoup exactly, but it's about $20 per client on TechSoup.org, and it's and also the registered refurbisher program also carries Office. I think at
but it doesn't work.
Price.
It doesn't work,
and that's a problem. Charles mentioned that an important consideration here is that Office 2007 on up, and including 2013, only work on this. If it's a previous version than that, then it won't work on either MultiPoint 2011 or 2012. So once again, only Office 2007 on up for either standard or pro version works on MultiPoint. And then there's a Microsoft website that has a huge list of all the different software they've tested that works on MultiPoint. There are many things, like most Adobe products, for instance, work on that. And my sense is that each client needs essentially its own license for all of those sort of classic package software. Of course, it's all different if it's a cloud service. Someone mentioned Office 365 and all of that, and SkyDrive. So it works really well for cloud services like that, and the people would have to have their own accounts for those things.
Good. We did have one question, a printer that's available through wireless, would that work okay?
Yeah, if it's part of your network, if it's on the network, it's just, MultiPoint is a server, and so, if your printer is already connected to your server, it works just the same.
Okay. And Jim, you talked some about the end user software. Is anything already installed on the server?
No.
Automatically.
So you're in MultiPoint. Essentially, all it is that it's similar to installing Windows on a computer. That's pretty much all you get. There's Charles, are there little kind of useful applications like a calculator and all the different things?
No, it's the same.
Come with
like you said, it's just the same as any other Windows software. It's an operating system, so you're installing an operating system. The only difference is it has that administration panel, and beyond that, it's exactly the same.
So it has all the helper applications that a version of Windows would.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's essentially a Windows 7 kind of environment. So if you know Windows 7, it's pretty much like that. It's exactly like that, in fact.
Great. We have about 4 minutes left. I have a couple more questions if we can go through a couple really quickly. One person asked when that lab in the box might be ready that you'd mentioned. Any idea on that?
Yeah, I don't have a good date on that, but I'm thinking in the next 4 to 6 months, because we're hoping that we will have that ready to go. And you could get a very similar kind of thing that Joy and Lane got, just a box full of everything with instructions, and then you can just set it up. So we're hoping that. We don't have
a library in a box.
Oh, a library in a box. Including a catalog, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right. And we also had a question about a replacement cycle. Any recommendations?
A replacement for the hardware? It's not
maybe the server?
Clear to me.
I would think the server.
It's just like any other hardware.
I don't know. It should last. If you get a good i7 server or an i5 server, it should last, 5 years. Would be my guess.
Good. We did have a question going back with reservation software. any experience with using LibOnline reservation software?
Yeah, that's an area that we have to research a lot more. No, we don't have an experience with that, and that's an area that we have to get into quite a bit more. So I'm thinking that down the road we're going to basically find the way that this reservation software will work on this, because we know that that's an essential application for most libraries. So sorry about that, but we're working on that to get you the information on that.
Good. And if a patron were to bring in their own tablet,
They could bring in their own tablets. Yeah, I mean, you can.
Would they need their own license? They asked.
You don't need to install a license on the device. I mean, the license is licensing for as to how many devices can be connected to this server is managed by the server software. So if you have if you have 5 licenses, or if you can allow for 5 devices, then that's what it'll serve. But there's no additional software you have to, like if somebody were to bring in a tablet, there's no additional software they would have to install. They'd have to run that remote desktop application, which is already installed. It's already in the device. If it's Windows.
Good. All right, I think we got through most of our questions. Just time to wrap up here.
Okay, let me just say a few things here. So this article at the top, which is the overview, it has links to where you can get MultiPoint from TechSoup, and also where you can get MultiPoint Server from the Registered Refurbisher program, both. So just know that it explains all the stuff that we were talking about today. Another thing I wanted to talk about is that we're going to have a landing page with descriptions of all of the installations that the test installations, like at the LeConner library. We'll have all those listed on the landing page. I think that URL, the web address there, is wrong. I'm pretty sure it is. And then the one at the very bottom, TechNet Support Community, is a place where anybody can actually go there and look at what issues people are having and what the solutions or fixes are for them. So that's a pretty interesting, pretty lively site to go look at if you want to find out more about what people are talking about in terms of setting this thing up.
Wonderful. Great.
So if anybody has any specific questions, that's me, Jim Lynch, and that's my full contact information if you want to contact me about any of this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Lane, all for sharing your expertise and helping us all learn a little bit more about this software donation product. And we do want to thank our webinar sponsor, ReadyTalk, which is another product donation. And we're very grateful for them for donating their software so that we can offer these types of learning events to you all. And we will have a survey that will pop up. If you could take that for us, let us know what you thought of this event. Let us know how we can help support you in the future as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we will send you a follow-up email with links to all of these resources so that you can investigate more on your own. Thank you.